If you haven't heard already, the car that we all know is the fastest, the most furious, and the tuner king of the JDM world is gonna die. Yes, the Toyota Supra will be gone. And in its place, well, as of right now, nothing. So, naturally, in the absence of a replacement, we wanted to look back at the Supra, a car that is about to die for the second time. This is the death of a legend. Okay, the big question, why is Toyota killing the Supra? And here's the answer, it's actually BMW. Remember how everyone was so upset about the A90 Supra and it was just a badge engineered sports car that shared like all the parts with the BMW Z4. Well, that was completely true. And because of that deal between BMW and Toyota, whatever happens to the Z4 happens to the Supra as well. So when BMW announces that they're shutting down production of the Z4, which they already did, that means that the Supra that is built in the same Austrian factory is gonna be dead too. Think of them as conjoined twins. They can't live without one another. But still, that doesn't really answer the question as to why it's happening. Well, BMW is now focusing more on energy and new electric and hybrid projects, and Toyota wasn't selling that many Supras anyway. So now that you've built up a premature sadness and nostalgia for the Supra that's about to die, let's go on a little journey through the Supraverse, shall we? The 70s, well, it was not an easy time for fun cars that were aimed at the North American market. The new and very strict emissions regulations meant that formerly badass American cars were now big, brown, slow boxes. And imported cars, well, they had to follow those same rules too. But the Japanese were used to having smaller, more fuel-efficient engines anyway. So cars like the Nissan Zs with their relatively little inline sixes were popping off in the States. And safe to say, Toyota, they were angry. They wanted in on the compact sports car market and knew it had to bring back a slick six-cylinder coupe, something that hadn't been done since the 60s with my favorite, the 2000 GT. But instead of spending a fortune to design a new car from scratch, they would start from a tried and true jumping off point, Celica Coupe. They began by stretching the wheelbase of the Celica by 5.1 inches, which is a freaking light year when it comes to car engineering. They also gave it a brand new front fascia to distinguish itself from the base Celica. And now that they had more room between the frame rails, they plopped in a 2.6-liter inline six and a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed auto tragic, and they just called it a day. And for 1979, Toyota released the Celica Supra. Is that a Supra? Is that a Supra? Is that a Supra? Yeah. That's the Supra, and it was originally just a trim level for the Celica Coupe because in case it flopped in sales, they could just totally scrap it, continue developing the regular Celica, and just move on. And although it was not quick at all and not fast, the Celica Supra did well to justify its survival for a second generation. The second gen, or A60, was still the Celica Supra. It wasn't quite ready to go off on its own with its own nameplate yet, but Toyota made sure it could keep up a little better than the previous one. And that's all thanks to the new and slightly bigger 2.8-liter inline six that now made 145 horses, as well as a new independent rear suspension setup. And with its more squarish design, flared fenders, and pop up and down headlights, it screamed 1980s. And speaking of the 80s, this new kid on the block had some serious competition, but didn't really care. In a 1984 handling comparison test run by Car and Driver, the little Celica Supra beat a Lotus, 2 Porsches, and a Ferrari. Not to mention, it finished second in an 8-car battle that Car and Driver did the following year to decide what was the best sports car coupe in America. And when the time came for a third iteration of the Celica Supra, well, Toyota said, this car is so damn good, we're gonna let it have its own model. Yeah. Enter the first ever Toyota Supra. No Celica here, folks. The 6-cylinder coupe finally graduated high school. Plus, the 80s were still in full swing, and with angular lines and pop-up headlights, the A70 was a total product of its time. I mean, look at this guy. It's pretty much on par with the Porsche 944 in the looks department, and that is a huge compliment when it's coming from me, a Porsche nerd. But most importantly, the third gen had been hidden in the gym. The now even bigger 3-liter inline six hit the 200 horsepower mark right on the dot and pushed the Supra even further into sports car territory. But just a year into the A70 Supra run, Toyota decided to swing for the fences. 1987 Supra Turbo. The addition of forced induction to the 7M GTE inline 6 resulted in 230 horses and over 250 sweet torques. The turbo cars also got limited slip diffs for good measure, and that means one thing: drifts and burnouts. Performance-wise, it wasn't just straight line speed. This was a car built for the corners with double wishbone suspension at the front and the rear. God, I love that 7 inches in the rear. And remember, this was the start of a renaissance of quality Japanese engineering, which meant this car had the 1980s tech you could only dream of. Inside, digital gauges, power adjustable seats, advanced audio systems, and other electronic goodies made it enjoyable by just simply sitting in the driver's seat. This generation also marked the end of the rear drive Celica, meaning Toyota had now completely doubled down on the Supra being their flagship sports car. And what would come next would change not only Toyota, but car culture forever. Known as the Mark IV, or the A80 if you're a mega nerd, the 4th generation Supra took the biggest step up from its predecessor that any Supra ever had. The A80's design was revolutionary. From the A70 Supra and back, you could tell how the design evolved and emulated itself. But the Mark IV? Good lord, this thing looks like nothing that anybody had ever seen before. And it was called a Supra? But ironically, it has probably become the Supra that most people think of when you say Supra. Those soft yet muscular curves were not just the 1990s showing through. This car was meant to be aerodynamic from the beginning. And fun fact, the final Mark IV design was also unchanged from its very first drawing and models, showing just how genius designers like Yuhikiko Yaguchi and Esiao Sakuki really were. I did not get that right. Inside, it was all about the driver. The A80 popularized the epic fighter jet cockpits that many 90s Japanese cars had and made you feel like you were the absolute boss on the roadway. Plus, these were touring cars as well. You could hop in and drive across the country without needing a chiropractor afterwards. It was a true dual-purpose coupe. But the design was only one of the many reasons why the Supra was so many leaps ahead of its predecessors. Because, well, we just gotta talk about it. I mean, the engine's displacement didn't change from 3 liters. It was 3 liters, but it was not the same engine at all from the previous gen. Toyota designed and built a completely new inline 6 dubbed the 2JZ. Ever heard of it? Yeah. An aluminum head, 4-valve per cylinder masterpiece that made 220 horsepower in naturally aspirated form. But the Supra Turbo? Try 320 from the factory. Severely underrated. But these weren't your normal turbochargers that you'd buy at Whole Foods. Nope, these were the bread and butter of the 90s, sequential twin turbochargers. One small and then one big. The first one feeds its boost into the bigger one to eliminate as much lag as possible and deliver a linear torque curve. Sounds yummy. Now, did it do it perfectly? No, not really. They still had oodles of turbo lag compared to modern cars, but this was a very fast car. 0 to 60 in 5.6 and 13.8 through the quarter at 106 miles per. Both figures beat out the then current Chevy Corvette, the Mazda RX-7, the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4, and the Nissan 300ZX Turbo, as well as the Porsche 968. You couldn't get better performance anywhere else in the segment at the time. And so, everyone bought one and Toyota got rich. Mark IV Supra, right? Yeah, right. No, the Mark IV Supra, the tech-forward marvel of its time, was a flop at the dealerships. Was it the slight premium price and not so great fuel economy? Was it the fact that Germany still had the monopoly on touring coupes in the 1990s? Or was it that you could get almost the same performance as a Supra from something way cheaper? We will never really know, but the one fact remained, that the Mark IV Supra's production started to dwindle as it approached the 1998 model year, which would be its very last in the United States. But the fun wasn't quite over yet, because in 2001, a little street racing flick called the Fast and the Furious debuted, and one of its four-wheel stars, a bright orange, neon-illuminated, decal-laden, tuned Mark IV Supra. This very movie helped the Supra name, but not necessarily the car itself, survive its downfall in the United States. Young people everywhere were entranced by this car, and this is where the Mark IV Supra fandom really popped off. That, coupled with its relatively low production numbers, are now the reason why an original Supra Turbo will cost you $100,000 or more on Bring a Trailer. But nothing changed the fact that the A80 Supra would be the last one for a while, and some even thought forever. As we moved further into the 2000s, there were some teases worthy of mentioning. The 2007 FTHS concept rumbled the car community with rumors that this crazy-looking hybrid V6 thing could be a 5th-gen Supra, but nothing ever came of it. Then, 7 long years later, another Toyota concept reared its head, the FT1 concept. So good. I mean, yeah, this thing looks more like a Supra than the FTHS, and considering this was the second sports car concept in the last 7 years, well, Supra fans were hopeful that this could actually be it. And then 3 years later in 2017, Nürburgring spy shots were released of a Toyota 2-seat coupe, and biggest giveaway, Toyota filed for a patent for the Supra name. It was finally happening. And in 2018, exactly 20 years since the death of the Mark IV in the US, Toyota released the new Gazoo Racing Supra, which is closely followed by the unveiling of the brand new A90 Supra at the 2019 Detroit Auto Show. Born from a historic collaboration with a BMW, the A90 emerged as a sigh of relief for fans. They didn't have to dream and wait anymore. They had the car right in front of them. And believe me when I say that this was an automotive event of the freaking decade. Supra fanboys, alongside the rest of the onlooking enthusiast community, had waited 2 long decades to finally see this thing come to fruition. What made this Supra extra spicy was actually how it was differentiated from the previous generations. What do I mean? Well, the previous generation, specifically the A80 and A70, were designed as luxurious sports coupes and focused as much on driver comfort as they did performance. But the A90? No, get that out of here. While it is still a nice car to begin with, the Supra's BMW Z4 underpinnings and overall goal was about the experience and the sport part of the term sports car. Its design is futuristic and yet unmistakably Supra, with aerodynamic curves, a striking front fascia, and the iconic double bubble roof. Those curves? They're not just there for aesthetics. Every vent, every sweep has a purpose, except like those 14 fake vents on it, but I don't know why they do that. Anyway, regardless of your opinion on the Supra's looks, the designers deserve some respect. Remember the FT1 concept that we stared at for years before the Supra came along? Well, they did the impossible and kept the production version extremely close to that FT1 design, something that is really not easy to do, except if you're designing like a Viper. That's pretty close. Oh, and beneath that pretty face roars the heart of a beast, a 3-liter twin-turbo inline-6 that now produces 382 horsepower and 368 foot-pounds of torque stock, which puts it among the fastest non-$100,000 cars on the road. The interior is also snazzy as well, greeting its owner with a driver-focused cockpit, hinting at its shared DNA with BMW. And as for handling, the A90 doesn't disappoint. Its near-perfect weight distribution and adaptive suspension are Supra hallmarks. It's tossable, yet tied down. You need it. Plus, a couple years ago, Toyota listened to the people and released the GR Supra, finally giving it the manual transmission that it deserved. And your boy was at the release event, and I gotta tell ya, I loved it a latte. It was an undoubted cultural hit with the automotive community. It drove well, sounded good, and even though it was a Z4 in drag, we at least got to have a new Supra on the road. But was it a sales hit? Well, if it's any consolation, the A90 stayed true to its Supra lineage and didn't sell that well. I know. And that brings us to today, where essentially the Supra is going to the wayside. Personally, I kind of think it's like a mind for me. I mean, it felt like we just got the Supra back. I mean, it was released in 2020, and then COVID happened, which made the next 3 years feel like they didn't happen at all. Are you with me on that? So, to me, we've only really had the Supra for the last 2 years, and now it's gonna die. Again. And the other sad part is that Toyota, for the most part, didn't have control over the Supra's fate. BMW has the last word in its decision, considering they lent Toyota their blueprints. And now they have to accept that this sports car will be part of the history books once again. But who knows? I mean, maybe in another 20 years, there's going to be a 2045 Supra or something, and that's going to blow our minds. Until then, though, you can enjoy this one while you can. So what's your take on the Supra and which gen is the best? Let us know in the comments below. Also, do you think the next one, if we ever get one again, is going to be electric or something else? Maybe a hybrid? Again, let us know. And if you enjoyed this vid, well, please like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and check out these Ideal Icon vids over here. I'm Brad. This is Ideal. We'll see you next week, and promise me one thing. Keep living Ideal lifestyle, 1/4 mile at a time. Winning's winning by an inch or a mile.